Welcome. We've had the Dutch Grand Prix and it's time to go through and rate each and every one of the drivers of how they got over the whole weekend at the Dutch race. And we're going to start with the man on pole position and eventual race winner, Lando Norris. He's finally put to bed the pole to flag win. Disappointing start, as I said before. And when you look back at it, it just looked like he didn't have enough revs, did he? He was just really slow, and it's surprisingly bad start, probably one of his worst he's had, considering Max Verstappen was comfortably into the lead well before turn one, and it's not the longest straight, but there's enough there, and really the only threat was the start for him, really. And then afterwards, that McLaren just looked so good. It's been one of the best things about it is just how good it's been on his tyres, which is a trait that was, well, Red Bull were really well known for, and to beat them comfortably. His pole lap was magnificent, and in the race to finish 20 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen was absolutely phenomenal. Hats off to him. He's just been so good this weekend. He blew away the competition. He was in a league of one, a 10 out of 10. There's just nothing else you can say but hats off. A brilliant race from Lando Norris. Second place, Max Verstappen, and he put it on pole position, didn't he? And it didn't look like that was on. A gap of 4/10 to Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri really should have beat him, but Max does Max things, damage limitation, and all he could have done really in the race was get into the lead in first place at the race, and then see where it goes from there. Overtaking here wasn't as hard as what we've seen before. But yeah, to struggle by lap 14 was a bit of a surprise on the medium tyres that he started on. But to come home P2 damage limitation, he's still got a 70-point lead in the Drivers' Championship. It's more the constructors really, I think, that he'll be looking over his shoulders at. And can Lando Norris continue this form? And what we've seen previously, which will give Red Bull a little bit of hope, and Max especially, is that we've not just seen McLaren take wins. You know, we've seen Ferrari with although it was back in Monaco to win, Mercedes win 3 of the last 4 before that, so they'll be hoping there's more of that. If they can't take the win, then that to be split with other teams and not just Norris and McLaren. But yeah, I think at the same time as being disappointed, he can also be fairly happy with his race weekend in the end. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 because I think it was pretty solid, and I don't think they had the best car this weekend, and to beat a McLaren, he'll be fairly happy with that. Third place, Charles Leclerc. I mean, what a fantastic race from him. Started in P6 qualifying day, looked way off. He was so disappointing, saying like, look guys, we keep saying it, we've got more work to do, and it's a bit horrible to keep saying this, but 9/10 of a second off pole position, and from there you think it really is going to be a struggle here, isn't it? But pull it off in the race, fantastic. Got the undercut on George Russell, so really good strategy call from them there, and that set them up for the race. And then to get past Oscar Piastri, McLaren went wrong. They didn't really go to cover off Charles Leclerc. Looking that back, they probably should have done that. I think their eyes were looking really at the prize of Max Verstappen and wrapping that up and having that tyre advantage for Piastri over Verstappen to try and help get that lead. I think that's where they sort of lost sight of Charles Leclerc a little bit, and well, what a race from him to hold on to them tyres for as long as he did. Oscar Piastri was within the DRS zone and fighting for the lead on lap 46, and from there on to just keep that gap, and then he bridged it and finished 1.8 seconds ahead of him in the end, so like comfortably kept him out of the DRS zone for fair chunks after that one attack. Yeah, absolutely tremendous, considering where they were absolutely nowhere all weekend, all the way up into Friday. Even in qualifying they were disappointed, so to come home and away with a podium here, he can be massively proud. Gives the team big momentum before they go into Monza. I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10 because I thought that was an absolutely fantastic race. In fourth place, Oscar Piastri, teammate to Lando Norris, who ran away with the win. I think overall when he came on the radio at the end of the race, he was disappointed. I think he was disappointed with the qualifying session as well, because when there's you've got 4/10 over the guy in second place over one lap, and Oscar Piastri is good in qualifying. He'll be disappointing not to be at least or start at least second in the race. And then from there onwards, his race, so he got a poor start, dropped behind George Russell. couldn't really make good headway from him there, could he? Like, I mean, I know he passed him way down later on in the race, lap 35, but he had much fresher tyres at that stage. Surprising he didn't make more headway on George Russell. Got stuck behind him in the first stint, and then got stuck behind Charles Leclerc in the second stint for, you know, eluded by a podium, and didn't really get the chance to race Max Verstappen. Considering where he was, I mean, in clear air that McLaren was fast, so yeah, overall a disappointing weekend. Started third, finished fourth. I don't think he'll be happy with that. I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10 for Oscar Piastri. Fifth place man, Carlos Sainz, an absolutely fantastic race from him. Started in P10, got a good start up to P9, and then passed a nice move around the outside of Fernando Alonso for P8. Was in a bit of a battle with Pierre Gasly for P7, eventually got the move done on him, and then was absolutely flying. Went really long on his first stint, pitted on lap 31 from the lead, which was, you know, it was going to be like that. Came out P9 at that stage. Others pitted ahead of him, and then, well, brilliant chasing down of Sergio Perez, a really nice move on him. Was hunting down George Russell, and then Mercedes decided to pit him, and then that gave Sainz a P5, a really good race to come up 5 positions from where he did. I don't think he probably expected that race from there. I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 because it was massively impressive from there. 6th place finisher for Sergio Perez, started in 5th, dropped down early after a bad start, and then just wasn't fast again, was he? He was never in the race looking ahead of him. Drivers that he thought, you know, he could be racing with, considering what Max Verstappen is doing in that car. I think the good thing for Red Bull is that he's probably closer up to the guys ahead, especially considering he's been, what, 8th, 9th, 10th for many races, so he can be overall much happier with what he's pulled off here. Damage limitation, well, no, it's not. I just think it was a poor race, to be honest. He was beaten by Carlos Sainz. George Russell, he probably should have been beating him, but the poor strategy from Mercedes meant that Sergio got a free pass on him. From there on, Perez, yeah, I mean, should have really finished P7, given a P6. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10 because at least it wasn't as bad as we've seen before. 7th place finish for George Russell, and well, he'd be really disappointed. Started in 4th place, got a really good start, up into P3, comfortably holding off Sergio Perez in that first stint, and then it just really went downhill from there on, didn't they? Got undercut in the pit stops by Charles Leclerc, and then, strangely enough, while he was ahead of Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, lap 55, came in for the softs, and, well, that put him behind the two of them, and he's ended up finished behind the pair of them, which was a really strange call from Mercedes there. Not sure why they've pit him. I think he'll be really disappointed with what the team have done in strategy wise, because it's cost him in both stops, isn't it? One to get undercut by the Ferrari, and then to stop and let Ferrari of Sainz and Sergio Perez passed to start where he did. Was a decent start to the race, but from there on, yeah, horrible from George and Mercedes. A 4 out of 10 for me. Next up, 8th place finisher Lewis Hamilton, and well, he had got that 3-place grid penalty, didn't he? So from 11th started in 14th place, made a good start early on, nice moves on Yuki Tsunoda, was up to P12. By lap 11 or 10 he was up into the points, and from there onwards, yeah, with a pass on Stroll, really good racing actually. He was making the moves, making headway, and the Mercedes looked strong in his hands, and from there onwards he came in for the pits, was just 5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, lap 42, and was faster than him to a point, but then lap 46, 47 the tyres just seemed to go away for him, didn't they? They started to drop off Carlos Sainz and then Sergio Perez ahead of him. Then went for the soft strategy. It made sense for him. He had a gap behind, was on the fastest lap, didn't get quite close enough to Perez and Sainz, although it looked promising early on. Yeah, the poor qualifying really cost him from there, and he was disappointed. Again, poor team effort to not hold on to that fastest lap, or at least let him go for it on that last lap, where he said, look, is it under the bags or under control? It really wasn't in the end, but he can be fairly happy with, from, you know, make up 6 places in the race, where it's really is, we've seen as what Oscar Piastri found, it is difficult to overtake here, but he was absolutely brilliant and flying at the start. A difficult one to rate here because his qualifying was actually poor, really poor, wasn't it? So I mean that cost him, and so I'm going to downrate him on the qualifying because of that. So I'm going for a 6 out of 10. It should have been really higher, I think, but overall, good recovery from him. Pierre Gasly finished in 9th place, started in that position, and well, was most of the race looking back, just wary not to lose too much ground. Got passed by Nico Hülkenberg, who went long, and we thought, oh, could this have, backfired here a little bit? But good pace in the end, made the move on Nico Hülkenberg to take 9th place. Holds off and beats the Aston Martins fairly comfortably. I think he can be really happy with his weekend. I think that was good points, and he went well here last year, and he's done it again. I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10. I was going to give him a 9. I think probably a 9. I think that's because that car was so bad early on, and for him, considering how comfortably he's beating his teammates here, he can be massively proud. Yeah, fantastic job from Pierre Gasly. 10th place, Fernando Alonso started in 7th place, and he was another one looking back all the way through. Race pace was just so poor, wasn't it? Especially considering they started and qualified so well, and from there Fernando Alonso didn't get the best start, lost a place early on, and normally he's one to make up places there, isn't he? But yeah, that was just the start and tone of his race from there. When looking backwards, picked off the point in the end with Nico Hülkenberg's strategy not working for him, and come home with a point. Overall, I think they'll be disappointed from where they started, but Fernando Alonso, will he say he's happy with a point? Probably not, because that car was, well, fighting for podiums last year, and they're now just about taking home points. So an awful lot of work for them to do there. I'm going to go for a 6 out of 10 for Fernando Alonso. 11th place finisher Nico Hülkenberg started in 12th place and, well, got a good start past Yuki Tsunoda up to P9, and then went really long on his stop, didn't he? Went for the one stop. He was, lap 51, 7 seconds ahead of Pierre Gasly, and you thought, could he hold on for some points here? Tyres just went off badly towards the end, didn't he? And then dropped back a few places from there. Overall, that's probably the best you could have hoped for. He did a decent job, just to miss out on points. The Haas wasn't looking good here at all, so I'm going to go for a 6 out of 10 for him. I think he did a fairly solid job in the end. Daniel Ricciardo started in 15th place, got a bad start, but from there on went long, and the strategy actually worked really well from him. When he pitted, he was absolutely on a charge, flying, made up some good places. He was like 17th at one point in the race to finish 12th. He can be happy overall, but that car again is a bit like the Aston Martins. They need some upgrades and they need them to work. They kind of haven't at the moment for them. They were getting into the points where they're regularly looking at fighting for some points, and they've dropped off a little bit on that front. They go to Monza next, home race in Italy, and well, strangely enough, they've gone well there, Toro Rosso, in the past, haven't they? Who can forget Sebastian Vettel winning there? So they'll be hoping that they can do well there. But Daniel Ricciardo, I think overall he can be happy with his weekend. Probably extracted the most he could out of that car. So decent. I'm giving him a 7 out of 10. Next up, Lance Stroll, 13th place finish. He had a bad start, dropped a couple of places, and then his race just got worse, didn't he? Got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and then, yeah, like Fernando Alonso, really struggling, was always looking back. Aston Martin got an awful lot of work to do, and Lance Stroll, disappointing for lose 5 places from where he started. I'm going for a 3 out of 10 for him. The Lance Stroll of old is back, isn't he? Got to try and forget this race and sort of get us back into the headspace of where he was pre-summer break, because he was doing quite well against Fernando Alonso, and that's all he can be targeted against, really, is your teammate. I mean, yeah, upgrades need to come, and fast, and they actually need to work for them. Next up, Alex Albon, who finished in 14th place, started last because he got disqualified from P8, and, well, actually drove a really good race from last, didn't he, to pick up 6 places from where he started. He was going really well up into P11, closing in on Magnussen at one point. Pit lap 59 again, went on the mediums, was on a charge then. yeah, I think that penalty really cost him some points this weekend, because that car was quick in his hands. He's done a pretty decent job to recover 6 places from where he was in the end. Shows kind of the pace that they have, and disappointingly couldn't really turn that into points, which I think he deserved. It's hard to rate this one because his qualifying performance was absolutely phenomenal. They got disqualified for the points, decimals of a point of a millimeter, the floor being too wide, which has cost them the disqualification. Rules are rules. I mean, they said they had to just shave the floor off just slightly to get it back in tolerance. So I mean, that's all we're talking here. So I don't think it would have made the massive difference in performance that they, look like they gained. I think the car is just good. The upgrades have worked, so they became happy with that. And yes, make up 6 places. Really decent result in the end. I'm going to go for Australia an 8 out of 10 because I think he was actually really good here. Alex Albon. 15th place finish for Esteban Ocon. He started in 16th place, was up to P14, but was 18 seconds behind Daniel Ricciardo at one point. It's just been a horrible weekend, a horrible qualifying session for him. He just never got to grips with this car around this circuit, really struggled with the grip, and that continued in the race for him. Disappointing, 4 out of 10 for me. Logan Sargeant started on P19 after Alex Albon's DSQ would have been last. Made his way up to P16 in the end. Probably one of his better races. He didn't finish last. Was a second behind Alex Albon on lap 57. Only because Alex pitted for tyres and then finished 23 seconds behind Albon from there onwards. So he's really not on the pace of Alex at all. He's in a tricky situation here because he kind of needs to I mean, we do say the pressure's off, but he does need to up his game to keep that seat at least till the end of the season. I know there's contracts and sponsor deals in place that might mean that it's harder for Williams to kick him out, but I'm honestly scratching my head here thinking, if Mercedes want Kimi Antonelli in their car for next year, and not sure because they've not confirmed a deal for him yet. Rumours are that Toto was pretty much let it slip that Antonelli will be in that seat. Could they do a Williams to say, look, get him in the car and give him a feel for racing for the next 6, 7 races, 8 races? We've got 9 races left after today. I don't think it'll happen before Monza if it does, but it could do. And could they strike a deal with Williams to say, look, let's try this guy out? Or even for Williams just to get whoever, they're not going to get Sainz in there, are they, from Ferrari this year? So it really can Mercedes do a deal with Williams, who we know they're close with? They've got good partnership team, effectively, aren't they? The way they work nowadays. So is there something that could happen there? Because Logan is just crashed the car, costing the team a lot of money, and just racing way down from where he should be, really. I'm going to go for a 4 out of 10. He made a couple of places from where he started, but I think mainly because that Sauber is awful. 17th place finish for Yuki Tsunoda, and he's had a stinker of a weekend, isn't he? Started 11th, and to finish 6th place behind from where he started, he had an exceptionally poor race. I'm not sure if there was any damage on his car. I've not heard anything over the team radio to say such, but to be so slow, he finished in P17. He was half a second behind Logan Sargeant. I think that's the most damning thing. He's finished behind Logan in a car that is probably better than the Williams, or he's a better driver than Logan. I'm going to give him that at least. So a weekend to really forget from him. I'm going to give him a 2 out of 10 because he's been comfortably beaten by his teammate, who actually started a few places behind him. 18th place for Kevin Magnussen, and from the pit lane start, because he had to change his battery, was 13th. Caught up to the back of the pack really quite quickly, didn't he? And then had a strange off at turn 1, lap 8, and lucky he didn't get beached on that, managed to keep it around on the escape route around the outside. Disappointing, finished in 18th place in the end. Not a fantastic race, and he's another one that needs some good performances to try and find a way to stay on the grid. It doesn't look possible for him at the moment, does it, with mediocre performances like this? Hard to judge, but at least he made up some decent places. 2 places from a pit lane start. I think he can be overall Fairly happy with that, but I mean, he's beaten the Saubers, who, yeah, like I said, they might have been racing F2 cars, these guys. It's hard to judge. I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10. It wasn't spectacular, though, really, was it? 19th place, Valtteri Bottas, and you got to really feel sorry for this guy, hasn't he? Started in 17th, and they just ran last. They were just so slow after, 16 seconds behind Kevin Magnussen at one point. He was slow, really horrible. Yeah, 17th, so some decent pace in one lap, but overall, they're just miles off the pace. An awful lot of work to do with Sauber. Like I say, at one point, they're probably thinking they're in F2 cars. They're absolutely miles off the pace. Difficult rating. I'm going to give him a 3 out of 10. And last place, Yuki Tsunoda. Qualified in 19th. Probably last effectively, wasn't it? Because Sargent didn't even do a lap. And then in the race, he was absolutely miles away. And he's another one that's really under pressure. Both drivers need a contract, and well, they've not been given the car to deliver. But he was 30 seconds of Valtteri Bottas, and yeah, that's not where you need to be as a young driver fighting to try and keep a place in F1. He's similar to Logan Sargent in my eyes. Really dropped off after pulling off some decent results. But he's got an awful lot of work to do. I'm going to give him another 2 out of 10 because just absolutely shocking. And let's finally get on to the predictions review. Well, let's look at the pole. I thought Lando Norris was on pole, and I got that one right. Max Verstappen to line up second, and well, he pulled off a lap to get that second place. And I thought it'd be Lewis Hamilton in third. I couldn't get any more wrong with that one. He finished way down, didn't he, after a poor qualifying session from him. It was actually Oscar Piastri to line up in third place. For the race win, I thought Lando Norris would take it, and well, boy did he take it. Comfortable win from him from there. I thought Lewis Hamilton would be second, and well, after that poor qualifying session, there was no chance of him being on the podium. A very good damage limitation second place for Max Verstappen in my eyes. And I thought Oscar Piastri would take home third. In fact, he should have, but an absolutely brilliant drive from Charles Leclerc to steal the podium on that one. I predicted a good weekend for the Alpine outfit, and well, P9 for Pierre Gasly is actually really quite good considering from where that car's been, and he's comfortably beaten his teammate Ocon. A bad weekend for the Haas, a P11, P18. I'm going to say I'm fairly confident that I've got that one right. It wasn't a good weekend from them. They've not been fighting for points, but Nico Hülkenberg, I think, pulled off a decent result actually in P11. Probably much better than where that car was. A decent drive from him. But yeah, overall a decent predictions review for me this weekend. But next we off to Monza, the home of Ferrari. It should be fantastic. The racing now looks so close. We go there, Ferrari off the back of a podium. Anybody can win that race, even though McLaren stole the march on this one. But I still think it'll be closer in Monza than it is here in the Zandvoort, and it should be fantastic. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.